Hey everyone, Piano Man Chuck here. I have with me today the PianoTeq version 5 standard edition virtual piano software. And I'm using a Kawai MP11 today strictly as a controller to that virtual software program that's running on my computer. You're not going to hear any of the internal sounds that are built into the Kawai since it's being used strictly as a controller. Any keyboard that has a MIDI out or USB MIDI can be used as a controller to PianoTeq virtual piano software. And it can run on Apple and it can run on Windows, which is what I'm using. And it runs in both standalone, which is what I'm running right now, and it can run as a VST or a plugin or whatever on another operating system. So let's go through this right now. Before I go into all that stuff, let me just explain something. Most virtual piano software uses sampling technology. And what sampling technology is, and I've done this in another video that explains the differences between sampling technology and physical modeling. PianoTeq is based on physical modeling. Now sampling, basically, you've recorded, not you, but whoever is putting out that virtual piano software that's sample based, whether it's Garriton's Yamaha CX or Ravenscroft Virtual Piano 275 or any other virtual piano software out there, Alicia's Keys, Ivory, Synthogy, and so on and so forth. Those are all based on sampling. And when you do sampling, it actually sounds pretty good. When you hit a key, you're playing back a sample that was recorded from one of those actual pianos, and at a number of different velocity levels. So if you have 88 keys and they recorded at, say, 10 velocity levels, that's 880 different recordings of whatever that sample is, whatever piano they use to record those samples with, and the resultant room that it takes to store those samples on your disk drive is enormous. Take Ravenscroft, for example. 35 gigabytes to store those samples. But they've since come up with a lossless compression formula where they've got that down to 5 gigabytes. Now here's the deal. Because PianoTeq is based on physical modeling, it's all complex algorithms and computational mathematics that's in here that takes place in, the moment you press a key, it goes ahead and computes what that sound would sound like in the real world. So that's physical modeling. You tell it what kind of piano you want, what kind of dampers, what's the density, what kind of strings, how long are the strings, all that kind of stuff. Just as though you're building a real piano in the real world, PianoTeq models that in your computer, and it produces the sounds it would sound like in the real world. Now, we're not at this point yet, but in the future, you could tell whatever software that's using physical modeling, you could tell it things like, build the strings out of nylon, or build the strings out of human hair that are 6 feet or 9 feet long. And of course, in the physical world, we all know human hair and strings, that's not going to work. But with physical modeling, it would make it work. And it would make it sound just like it would sound like in the real world. So anyway, 40 megabytes. That's all it takes. Installing it at the blink of an eye, it is installed. It's super fast, as opposed to regular conventional virtual piano software that takes forever to load the samples and so on and so forth. Well, anyway, let's get into it. This is the standalone version of PianoTeq 5 standard, and I've got it blown up to full screen so that you can see what it's like. Now let's go through everything, giving this an overview. Let's start with the file. Okay, you've got a whole bunch of stuff over here, and basically if you recorded anything, you can go ahead and save it as a MIDI file or export it as a WAV file, all that kind of stuff. Edit, well, standard kind of stuff. Preferences, which is the same thing as the options over here. If you press either one, you're going to get the same thing. And this is where you set up your devices. And this is where you set up your MIDI stuff. You see this little window over here. When I play things, it shows you all the MIDI stuff that's going on. And even if I step on the sustain pedal, you can see that. And the sustain pedal is controller 64. And if I step on it just a little bit lightly, you see it's not 127 like an on-off sustain pedal. It's variable values because I have a variable sustain pedal. So you can do things like half damping, that kind of stuff. And next up, you got the performance, the CPU. You can see right over here how much of your CPU you're using. And you can set up the sample rate and the polyphony and so on and so forth. The instruments, it goes ahead and shows you these different categories. Right now, when you see an OK, those are installed and fully functional. And when you see demo, everything is it's built into this software. It's just not activated. If you want to go and purchase something like the Bluthner piano, you go ahead and enter an activation code and you'll get an OK here, so like that. And the very cool thing with like the Bluthner and this YC5 rock piano and so on and so forth, the cool thing is for the first 20 minutes while you're running the program, these demo things will run. Some of the keys will be deactivated on your keyboard, but it'll run for the first 20 minutes and you can play things even though some of the keys are deactivated. You get a really good feel of what those pianos sound like. I'll get into that a little bit more later. General, pretty much self-explanatory, and the about, of course, everybody knows what that's all about. Alright, so let's close this and let's go over these four things. We've already gone through the file. Now, the edit, yeah, we've gone through that. Window, preset manager, microphones, blah, 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 blah. We can get to all of this stuff here, but basically, to get to full screen mode so that I can show you what's going on, it's the window menu selection here, and I go down here. We can toggle the full screen mode on and off. And help, self-explanatory, you've got the whole PianoTeq manual available to you in English or in French. Now, since PianoTeq is France-based, that's why we have French. It's created by Modart, and they've done a fine job with this. Okay, so let's go over this top bar right here, and you'll see this little percent thing, and it shows you how much of your CPU that you're using. Okay, and you've got a recorder here. This is the transport bar for that. Transport bar is pretty much self-explanatory. And you have a little sample here. This sample that's built in is Blues Demo, but you can choose from a lot of these things. And the really cool thing about this is while you're looking for different piano sounds and different effects and all that kind of stuff, and while you're playing with that, you start playing a song and you come up with this creation because it's really, really motivating you, and you play this song and you think, oh my God, if only I pressed record. Well, guess what, folks? You don't have to worry about that, because if you look over here, recently played on the keyboard, 10 minutes ago, 49 minutes ago, 24 hours ago. If you haven't used it in a while, it goes back to the last one, whether it's 5 days ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever ago. And you can load that right up and play. So you never have to worry about creativity being lost. This handles that for you. And right now, it's set for a blues demo. So if I go ahead and press play, it starts to play this blues demo, and over here we've got all kinds of different parameters or different pianos that we can choose from. Let's go to the D4. We're at the D4 daily practice. Let's go to D4 blues. And let's go to D4, say impressionist. Alright, so you kind of get the idea there. Alright, you got a metronome here, then you can set the beats per minute and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we like to keep that at 120. Anyway. And I've kind of gone through this parameter already, but let me just go through a couple of other things here. We can load an FXP file here. Now, the acoustic pianos that are already purchased for my particular version are the Grand D4 and the Grand K2. So when you look over here at the Grand D4, you've got all these that you can choose from. The Grand K2, you've got all these that you can choose from. I've got some electric pianos built in here, vintage reeds, clavinet, and some vibraphones, a marimba, and a xylophone. Now, other instruments where it says demo, this is the cool part here. So if I want to hear, these are demos because I haven't purchased it. So if I want to hear what the Bluthner sounds like, the current instrument is running in demo mode, blah, 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 blah. And even though some of the keys are deactivated, you kind of wouldn't know it, but with what I played. And let's try something else. Let's go back down here. I always like Bechstein, and I haven't purchased the Bechstein yet, but it is running in demo mode. So let's try a Bechstein 440. Okay, so, and then we have things like the electric pianos, and of course when you select an electric piano, you get different things that you can do with it, with the tuning, and the voicing, and the design, and so on and so forth. And the same thing with like the vibraphone. Again, you got tuning, voicing, design. But mainly, this is all about piano. So let's go back to, let's start with the Grand D4, the daily practice. Okay? Because this is what most of you are going to be working with. It's piano. Now, you've got these 6 things over here, these 6 little windows. Let's go over to the tuning window. And let's see what we can do with this. Now, the tuning for this one is at A440, American Standard pretty much, but there's others. The temperament that you can set here, you've got all these different temperaments that you can use. Unison width, and it shows you what this is all about in this little box. Octave stretching, and direct sound duration. Okay, voicing, piano, mezzo, forte, spectrum profile, hammer noise, strike point, soft pedal, pretty much all self-explanatory, the things you can adjust. The design, the soundboard, you can set for impedance cutoff or Q factor, string length, and you know, string length, whether you got a baby grand or a 9-foot stretch grand, the longer those strings are, the more they're going to vibrate and the louder they're going to be, because you got a bigger soundboard, of course, too. So let's change that string length. So let's go back to where we were. Sympathetic resonance, that's a good one. Let's just hold down some keys, like an A minor chord with my left hand. And when I play any note that's a cousin or a harmonic of one of those A, C, E, or A, you're going to hear it resonate. It's the equivalent of the dampers for those 4 notes being held up so that those strings are free to vibrate. Now, how much vibration? That's what this is all about. Okay, so you hear the difference right there. Velocity, this is a cool thing because no matter what kind of keyboard you're using, you can set the velocity level here. And you've got some presets over here for velocity level where you can do slow, slow, normal, moderately fast, or fast. And it's going to set up the velocity curve for you. And there's a really cool thing built in here where you can pretty much have it analyze your playing from your softest notes to your loudest notes, and including your damper pedal, and come up with a specific curve that's cool for you. Otherwise, you can come up with your own where you can just modify to your liking. But I don't want to do that. Let's keep it at reset right here. And sound recording is a good one. You've got these obvious choices over here, but you have this view over here, the top view and a front view, and basically you've got a couple of microphones, and you can move those microphones to whatever position you want. And the same thing over here. You can actually place them wherever you want, and it's going to make the piano sound just like you're doing this for real in the real physical world. Pretty cool, huh? And compensation, level, the delay, you've got the stereo width, how much stereo separation you've got, sound speed, all kinds of parameters here. So you can see that this is highly configurable. Let's get out of here. And then you got the rest of the stuff here. Action, where you can control the damper position, the damping duration, the last damper, the mute, the key release noise, and the sustain pedal noise. You know, when you press down on the pedal, there's some noise. Hear that? And this over here actually matches my foot if I'm pressing at the pedal or not. I don't want that much noise. But that kind of adds to the performance, to the richness of the performance and all that kind of stuff. Okay. And delay, that's self-explanatory. Reverb is self-explanatory. And here's a really cool thing right here. These condition from mint to worn. If it's a brand new piano, it's in mint condition. And if it's really worn out, or somewhere in the middle, or anything in between here. And I want to touch basically on, again, these velocity levels. When you have virtual piano software that's built on sampling, and let's say you've recorded 10 different volume levels per key depending on how hard or how soft you've hit it, it's going to go ahead and play back the closest to the velocity level you hit this key at. Now, a lot of pianos such as this one have 128 velocity levels, like from 0 to 127. This one, this actual PianoTeq software, uses all 128 velocity levels. So whatever you played it back, it doesn't go ahead and play to the closest that's on that. It plays to whatever that velocity level is, that how hard or how soft, because it builds everything on the fly with mathematical computations. Alright, so that's pretty much it here. Now, over here we're at daily practice, and you see it's in italics because I modified it somewhere, but if I right click it goes back to whatever the default was. And this group of icons over here, this is pretty cool right here. So this preset, this just brings up everything that is built into this, and a lot of the things like the Bechstein, the Frenzel, and the Broadwood, I don't have that. I can go ahead and purchase that and then activate that in here. Nothing to download, just a code that you put in. Okay? And over here, this is where you can, if you've modified something to the way you really like it, you can go ahead and save it and give it a name. And over here, this is a cool one right here. We click on this. Basically, let me explain what's going on. Alright, so all of these things that you can change within these parameters, you go to daily practice or whatever you've picked, you can change the tuning, and you can change the voicing, and so on. You can change all kinds of things. But when you go to another piano, like say the Grand K2 or another piano within the Grand D4 or something else, you lose all of those changes. So let's say that you want to adjust the volume, but when you adjust that volume, you want it to stay at that volume no matter what you choose for another piano or anything else you've chosen. So you click on this check mark here. These are a lot of the things that you can change, and whatever you check, these things are going to remain constant. So if you've changed the detuning or the soft pedal or the limiter switch or the mallet bounce or the reverb or anything, basically whatever you place the check mark on, those changes will remain constant from one piano to another selection. Very cool. Very thoughtful of them to put that in here. Now random, that's another cool thing. And if I hit random again, if I hit it again, let's try one more. One more. go back here. Obviously, it's been modified by the random. So right click, we go back to normal. And you'll see A and B here, and a little kind of LED light. This is another cool thing. A and B are two different memory locations that store the exact same piano. So whatever you pick, it's stored in an A bank and a B bank. So when you go ahead and change something like the voiceness, or no, let's not change the voice. Let's go ahead and change the tuning. And the voicing. And part of the design. So you hear that? Now, that incorporates all the changes I just made. You just watched me do all those changes. And if I go to the B bank, it's the same piano without the changes, just the defaults. So you can compare what you've done to what the original is. And this little green sort of LED light lights up to show you that you have made some changes. So that's how you can compare. And basically, you get this little thing over here. But anyway, let's go back to A. And if I right click to put it back to normal, the light goes off because now they're identical. So this is a really cool thing. And I like to watch these notes go by on the bottom. Depending on the notes that I hit here, or you can get rid of that altogether. But it's a cool thing to have. And this exclamation mark is basically, you know, to release all keys, pedals, reset the audio, just like a MIDI panic button. So this is just a very brief intro to what you can do with this piano. This is such a cool thing, and I'm not really into virtual pianos, but because this is physical modeling and it's so quick and all that kind of stuff, and I can basically design my own piano from scratch, I love it. I really love it. But there are sample pianos that sound better than this, and there's physical modeling like this that sounds better than sample pianos. It depends on what you're looking for and what you want. But this is the very beginning there at the forefront of physical modeling technology. You'll find physical modeling in another keyboard that's starting to catch on. It's called Physis from Viscount or Viscount Technologies. Roland touches on it with the V piano. But anyway, this is my take on it right now. This is an overview, and as far as my opinion on this, this is a real go. If you have a chance to purchase this or try it somewhere, it's well worth it. I mean, to be able to build your piano out of scratch without having to have the wood and all the labor and assembling all the parts, this is the way to go, folks. Love it. Piano Man Chuck, peace out. Thanks for watching.